What I'm working on now is like, if I could not fail at anything, what does that look like? So when you're thinking about whether it's business, whether it's a new album, whether like when you're thinking about what you're doing next, are you aware of how you think about it? Are you thinking about all the things that could go wrong, or all the challenges that will present themselves, or all the things that you need to be worried about? Or do you stay strictly focused on best case scenario?
I definitely think of it all.
Okay.
And I think of it all to great degree. But I often think that if I'm going to do it, I have to have enough reasons on why it will be successful before I do it versus if I think the negatives are more, the potential negatives, which is it's all hypothetical.
Right.
It's all projection and assumption. It's never fully absolute anyway,
Right.
but usually I'll weigh those before I leap or jump. Um but I have found if you want to do it, just do it. And I'm often rewarded for it. It's kind of wild,
Mhm.
but I think the question again, as you said it, is what would your life look like if you didn't think you could fail? What would your life look like if you didn't think you could fail?
So
Woo!
what is that? So that's the thing that I think so many times people
Ugh,
offer themselves the idea of failure as the reason of why they won't try. And it can be something as innocuous as like, "Oh, I won't buy a plant because I can't keep them alive." And it's like or you can figure out how to keep one alive, and we do it all the time. I don't want to leave at this time because then I'll be in traffic. I don't want to, and so some of it is preparation and being cognizant of a situation, but a lot of times the way we think of what we will pursue is based on our attachment to it not being successful.
that's right. The it became a trendy topic and trendy self-diagnosis, this imposter syndrome um concept. And basically it's the not feeling qualified for the spaces you enter, and the self-doubt, the self-questioning. I wrestle with that a lot more than I realized. As courageous of a person as I am, as ambitious as a person as I am, I definitely often kind of wrestle with, once I land in the spaces, how did I get here? Did you manipulate something? Did you do
Mm.
something to be in this space? And I know that I could probably conquer a lot more in life if I didn't give failure a thought.
Mm. All of us. Yeah. Now I can tell you I do not suffer from imposter syndrome. And I remember, yeah, a few years ago, it's like that was just kind of the catchphrase that people would throw out there.
Yeah.
I think the reason why I don't suffer from imposter syndrome is because I am so clear in the fact that no one knows what they're doing ever. So if anything, I have the opposite of imposter syndrome. I feel like I know as much as anybody else here. I mean, y'all making it up too. So why shouldn't I be here making it up? But I feel like what I tend to suffer from and what I do or do not pursue, especially well, I guess professionally and personally, I suffer from an obscene amount of indifference. I'm kind of like, I could pursue this thing and I believe it would go well and I believe I would be successful, but I don't feel like doing that right now. And that's what I struggle with. I am very
Wow.
indifferent. Even on this tour I'm on, I'm the opening act, and 99.99% of the audience have never heard of me. Like I said, most of them aren't comedy fans, or they would not have heard of me
Yeah.
based on these cities we're going to. And
Yeah.
so many people come up to me after the show and they're like, "Oh my god, you should headline. I would watch you for an hour. Oh, I will watch you," and I'm like, "Oh, okay, yeah." who wants to do that for an hour? You know what I'm saying? It's like
Yeah,
I'm very
you
like,
gotta hang. That's so interesting. We are polar opposites on that because I do know that for me, I believe that I'm great at what I do. I believe you know that you're great at what you do. And I believe that in my greatness, it is meant for an audience to be able to receive and enjoy it and bask in it. Like it was meant to lift people. So it has to go forth. Whereas
hmm.
with you, you're like, well, if I do it, I do it. If I don't, I
Yeah,
don't.
if you
And
were there at lunch, you
such
heard
is
me
life.
say it. If you came to the show, you heard it. But if you didn't, I'm, I'm fine with it. And that's what I want to push past because I don't know if and like I said, I can tell I have a unique thought process in talking to other creatives and artists about this. Is not imposter syndrome, and I actually believe it would go exactly as I would hope for it to go. But it feels inconvenient. I don't know. It feels inconvenient to be the greatest version of myself. It feels like as tired as I am right
Woo,
now,
no.
I think a lot of people suffer from that. When somebody says, "How are you doing?" and you say, "I'm doing the best I can." How often is that true? Like, how often can you literally say you are doing the best that you can? I don't. I very rarely do the best I can. I do pretty okay. I do enough. Right. And so now, as I'm taking accounting of the year and my plans and who I want to develop in as a person and as a human, I'm like, man, what if I put forth the effort that I find inconvenient? What would that look like?
Oh my gosh, your life would be incredibly awesome,
Hmm.
incredibly epic. I dare you. I dare you to lean into that, to give it one day at a time a try to move in that. Because as I even said, anytime I mention your name and somebody knows who you are, it is how incredible you are. It is not, oh yeah, I know Eunice. It's they just go on and on about Eunice. And I'm like, she's that dope. Like she's that
Oh,
dope.
that's
And
sweet.
so
And so that for
imagine if
me
your
is like,
output,
I know. And it has never affected me in that way. And so that's what's so crazy is I see people reacting and responding and saying what's next and when will you and why don't you? And I'm just like, well, I mean, it, and so
huh,
I want to get past my indifference about things, about my talent, about my gifts, about my abilities, about my resources, about, and it's not that I take it for granted at all because and I check in, the reason why I know I don't take my gifts for granted is because I'm thankful every time I talk to people who don't have the gift. And I'm like, oh my God, I couldn't imagine walking around like that. So I'm very grateful for the person I am. Okay. I get it. I get reminded all the time, girl, you
I
different. You
think our
special.
upbringings,
And I want to lean
I
into it.
think
I
our
do. I do. I want to
upbringings,
figure that out.
I think our upbringings have a lot to do with it because while I believe you kind of grew up with one other sibling, but y'all are it's a huge age gap, correct?
No, no, it's three siblings. It's four of us total, two girls, two boys. Um, I'm 4 years
Oh,
younger than my oldest sister, 3 years younger than my oldest brother, and 4 years older than my youngest brother.
oh Lord.
Have we met?
Oh,
Hi,
okay.
have we met? I'm
I
the
don't know
third of
why.
four.
No, I definitely thought you mentioned something about kind of growing up as an only child, but maybe I'm completely off
Oh, you know
and
what? Now, a lot of
still
people assume,
delirious.
a lot of people think I'm the only child, but that's just the way I present. I present as if I am the only. People are always surprised that I have siblings
Okay.
that I grew up with, and they're like, "Oh, I thought you were an only child. Are you the baby?" I'm like, "No," but I present. But that speaks to what I'm saying. I have never been attached to someone else's existence as far as who I am. Some people have the baby syndrome or they have the oldest daughter syndrome. I've always been a fully realized person. So when I come into the room, I feel like this is it, right? I very rarely feel attached to someone else in the story, whatever the story might be. Does that make sense?
Wow. And it seems like we what we do have in common, which I didn't realize until this moment, was that we kind of like are the middle children to some degree. Um, which
Mm-hmm.
often is we have to find our identity and ride in with it, because we can often be lost in the shuffle. And so it's either we believe completely in ourselves or we don't at all. And I know
Mm-hmm.
for myself, I kind of ride the wave of, I believe in myself. I know that I have what it takes, but I also kind of move in a space having so many siblings where it's like, I'm doing it too, guys. I would love to hear your cosign. I would love to hear you're doing great, as I do for everybody else. So I kind of live
Mm.
not for the applause, but for the accountability and agreement. Like, yes, Major, yes, you're doing it. We're with you. I, I wish I could only exist where I could care less about anybody else caring, but it's tough for
Mm-hmm.
me. It's tough for me.
Mm-hmm. Well, no, and I think most people are more like you than me. I feel like somehow, some way, like I said, I experience people, my friends, the conversations, and I'm always like, huh, I don't think that, huh, I don't feel that. And so it causes me to kind of retreat and say, now, what has caused you to feel or think this way? Because you seem to be kind of not the norm on this idea, of
Yeah.
things. And a lot of times I can usually, connect the dots and say, oh, I think because of this right here, and then that right there, and then that right there.